Welcome to Security Plus. Today's topic will be the business process as presented by the 8570 branch of the 336 Training Squadron, Keesler Air Force Base, located in Biloxi, Mississippi. These are the elements of the business continuity plan that we're going to be talking about today. The goal of all this, as you can see from the slide, is continuing business operations, whether they be civilian or military. You need to try to get your critical systems up in the most minimum amount of time possible. And your business continuity plan is going to go a long way toward detailing the procedures and the logic you're going to go through to achieve these goals. You can see on this slide we have several of the reasons why you might experience an outage. You have natural disasters, and you have human-made outages. As we can see at the bottom, your BCP is the countermeasure to all these negative events. Now, into the business continuity plan, one of your first steps, which we're going to examine in some depth in subsequent slides, is completing a business impact analysis. And you can see that developing other recovery strategies, plans, and actually testing and updating these are going to be of critical importance. So the business, as promised, the business impact analysis. It identifies systems critical to the continued existence of the company in the wake of a disaster or an outage. So you're going to be looking at the things that are most important here. Critical functions. You need to identify those. What are the dependencies on any of these critical functions? And we're going to talk about our recovery time objective, among other things. You have to game what type of disaster and outage scenarios are likely to affect critical functions. You also need to identify your RPO, your recovery point objective. So I like to roll it up into the last bullet. How much of and what can the organization tolerate and still survive to fight or do business another day? So, quantifying the RTO and the RPO, you can see there RTO is fairly straightforward. It identifies the maximum amount of time it can take to restore a system after an outage. This is what the business or your organization is saying. This is the maximum amount of time we can afford to be down. And then the RPO is determining the worst case scenario for the amount of data they can lose. So you thus have a specific window at the end of which network operations will resume, and a maximum amount of acceptable data loss is in mind. So we look at continuity of operations. We look at backup sites. Now, as you can see, we basically have three flavors of this. And you can think back to the story of the three bears. I won't torture you with that, but essentially a hot site, minutes to hours. That's the main thing to remember when you're trying to, for the evaluation, i.e. your 501 exam. Hot site implies minutes to hours returning to normal business functions, or critical business functions. This is very costly. Essentially, you're building or you're maintaining a mirror facility where you normally conduct your business out of. Obviously, the best solution, but very expensive. The opposite extreme is a bare bones building. And you can see you have a corresponding increase in the amount of time until you're back up and running with regard to critical functions. So a bare bones facility, basically what you're talking about there is you have running water, you have electricity, you have internet connectivity, but you're going to have to bring either going to have to purchase new or bring undamaged equipment and get it all reconfigured and set up there. The middle ground is going to be your days to week, your happy medium. This can be a building where you have some infrastructure already there, and the main thing to think of again here, of course, is the time. You're somewhere between days to a week, resuming normal critical operations. This will be more expensive than a cold site, but you have the benefit of not being down for the length of time that's normally ascribed to maintaining a cold site. Something else your organization will have to think about is your disaster recovery plan. And there may be more than one. Smaller organizations may have just one, but larger ones will probably have multiple ones dealing with different aspects of recovery. You could have a COM plan, you could have a customer service plan, and so on, specific aspects of recovery. And you could also have ones dealing with, say, natural disasters or cyber attack and so on and so forth. So you could have lots of different disaster recovery plans. And it will identify the steps to be taken, but more importantly, the order that these steps are taken in. So as a rule, critical business functions and security services are restored first, and the nice-to-have stuff will be restored last. For larger organizations, the IT slice of this will be a separate IT contingency plan. Look at some other considerations. Communications, you'll have a war room as a communications focal point for disaster recovery team members, employees, and customers. You also have to have a succession plan, and in the military we refer to that as a chain of command. In the civilian world they call it a succession plan. The ever important testing to see if a plan works and to see if it needs to be updated or validated. It will validate the plan, but you are looking at if there's something wrong with it, if it needs to be revised. And then, of course, there are two main versions of your testing. You will have sort of a tabletop exercise in which only your leadership will be involved. In the civilian world, will be your C-level employees. Military world, you'll probably have the commander, the XO, the chiefs involved. And the advantage of tabletop is that the leadership will be able to exercise that plan without, whether this be civilian or military, but the leadership under a tabletop exercise, your leadership will be able to exercise their plan without impacting normal day-to-day operations. Functional testing is going to involve everybody and will severely impact your daily facilities during said test. Today we've talked about the business process and some of the plans that will need to be in place. My sources are as noted. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Have a nice day.